The Allen Line Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
For years now, the Wall That Heals, a replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, has toured the country. But to get to where it's displayed, the wall requires some serious transportation, and that is where truckers come in. I'll talk with one of those truckers, OOIDA board member Terry Button of Rushville, New York. To take part in Mission Military Appreciation this week, just go to ooida.com and click on Become a Member. Tuesday, May 14th, is the start of this year's Roadcheck across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So what do you need to know? I'll review what's happening with Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department. And finally, doubtless at some point you've seen automated cameras meant to enforce red lights or speed limits. Now, several states are considering or have passed changes to the rules governing those devices. We'll hear from state legislative expert Keith Goebel. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is making some subtle changes to its under-21 pilot program. Earlier this year, an appropriations bill removed some of the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program's restrictions in hopes of attracting more applicants. FMCSA is now moving ahead with those changes. In a notice, the agency said it was removing the requirement of driver-facing cameras from the program. In another reversal, motor carriers will no longer be required to get approval as a registered apprenticeship program from the Department of Labor. When the pilot program launched in early 2022, it was intended to accommodate up to 1,000 carriers and 3,000 enrolled apprentices at any given time. The current numbers fall far short of that target. During FMCSA's Safety Research Forum at the end of April, the agency announced that there were 40 approved carriers and 28 apprentice drivers in operation, with 21 additional drivers having graduated or completing their probationary periods. The pilot program is scheduled to end next year. Meanwhile, FMCSA officially extending an exemption request from CRST. Last summer, we told you that the agency had decided to continue giving the carrier a pass on certain driver training rules, notably the one that requires a CDL holder be seated in the front seat of the commercial motor vehicle at all times while the commercial learner's permit holder is engaged in behind-the-wheel training. Just 2 comments opposing the exemption were submitted to FMCSA, which ultimately concluded that the move is not compromising safety. This is the 3rd time CRST has gotten an exemption from this rule dating back to 2016. The new extension runs through September 2028. FMCSA in the past has granted similar exemptions to other fleets, including CR England, New Prime, Werner Enterprises, and others. Cargo theft numbers continue ticking up. That's according to a new report from Verus CargoNet, which notes there were 925 cargo theft incidents reported in the first quarter of this year. That's up 46% compared to a year earlier and up 10% from the last 3 months of 2023. CargoNet referred to it as a sustained crime wave that began in late 2022. In all, an estimated $154 million worth of goods was stolen in the 3 months starting in January. The report said much of the threat came in the form of complex fraud schemes where entire truckloads were picked up and never delivered, or delivered with digitally altered paperwork to hide the theft from the customer. It's something CargoNet's Vice President of Operations, Keith Lewis, recently told us about.
It's never one thing, just like there's no silver bullet to stop it. So it's best practices the bad guys learned during COVID. You can work from home. We're dealing in a virtual marketplace, and you can work from anywhere in the world and commit these type of crimes. And what we're seeing is it's got more of an international flavor to it now, where the shot callers are in specific European countries and other countries across the ocean. The demand for electronics is skyrocketed with all these new innovations. So, and the other commodities, all of a sudden we saw energy drinks. We never really had a big problem with energy drinks up until a couple of years ago. So what I learned is a lot of countries, these things are highly regulated, illegal, high cost, So I'm the type of person, if you tell me I can't have something, I want it more. So a lot of it is demand driven. Well, it's all of this strategic type theft is demand driven, because I'm not going to go out and steal a load of something unless I have a buyer for it. It's become a business for the bad guys.
Looking ahead to the second quarter and beyond, CargoNet anticipates that the high levels of non-delivery thefts and strategic shortages will continue. Fewer people are buying new Class 8 trucks. Ward's Intelligence reports that less than 20,000 units were sold in April, down 13% compared to a year earlier. That makes for 9 straight months of declines. New analysis from the OOIDA Foundation raises many of the concerns expressed by truckers when it comes to the EPA's new Phase 3 greenhouse gas regulations for heavy-duty vehicles. While the final rule requires a quarter of sleeper cab tractors to have zero tailpipe emissions by 2032, the foundation points to operational realities that the mandate ignores, not to mention the technological challenges, the current lack of infrastructure, and the cost. The OIDA Foundation notes that the mandate would require that 1.4 million electric charging stations be installed by 2032, and that current electric vehicles on the market lack the range needed by long-haul truckers. And while utility companies will need to invest $370 billion to upgrade networks, the OIDA Foundation notes that truckers will need to invest $620 billion for their own charging infrastructure. While the OIDA Foundation serves as a voice for truckers who are opposed to the EPA mandates, lawmakers are also getting involved. Last week, Senate Republicans used a committee hearing to criticize the EPA's torrent of regulation, as they called it. Congressional review acts in both chambers of Congress have been introduced to overturn the EPA regulations, but they are unlikely to succeed. Amazon is adding several dozen electric trucks to its fleet in Southern California. The company announced that it expects to deploy about a dozen Volvo VNR electric trucks to its drayage operations at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach by the end of this year. The plan is to have 50 of the trucks in rotation over the coming years. Amazon says their VNR trucks have a range of 275 miles and a gross combination weight of 82,000 pounds. 2 new hydrogen fuel stations are now open in separate parts of California. The first is part of a $53 million project at the Port of Oakland, spearheaded by Hyundai. Dubbed the NorCal Zero Plan, it includes a deployment of 30 Hyundai Class 8 hydrogen fuel cell electric trucks, which have a range of more than 400 miles on a single fill. The hydrogen fuel station has a storage capacity of 18,000 kilograms, enough to support more than 200 trucks daily. Meanwhile, Nikola has opened its second hydrogen fuel station next to the Port of Long Beach. The company plans to have 14 refueling sites for Class 8 vehicles by the end of this year as part of its HYLA network, which will include stations and partnerships with public truck stops. And finally, Michigan will soon look at a new way to fund road projects. The Detroit News reports that state lawmakers have proposed giving the state DOT $5 million for a road usage charge study to see what a mileage-based revenue collection system might look like. Currently, the state relies largely on taxes collected from fuel, but the Michigan DOT Senior Managing Director says the fuel tax is just not enough amid more fuel-efficient vehicles and a growing number of hybrid and electric vehicles. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Antonio Quijano of Havelock, North Carolina. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 3 years of safe, accident-free driving. The OOIDA Safe Driving Award program is sponsored by Shell Rutella. Starting Tuesday, Marty Ellis and OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker, will be at the TA in Seville, Ohio. That's located at exit 209 off Interstates 71 and 76. Stop in, say hi to Marty, and join OOIDA for a $10 discount. Next, OOIDA board member Terry Button talks about hauling the wall that heals. And I'll get a refresher course on coping with this year's Roadcheck from Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the show. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
Get the most power performance out of your rig with Howe's Diesel Defender. It provides maximum lubricity and contains specialized IDX4 detergent to clean and prevent deposits and safely removes harmful water. Visit HowesProducts.com for more information.
Attention professional drivers. Do you owe money to the IRS? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. Call for help now, 855-976-4291. That's 855-976-4291.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
For years now, the Wall That Heals, a replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., has toured the country, bringing the important reminder of our history to locations across the nation, touching people who otherwise might never see the original. You're listening to Landline Now, and I'm your host, Mark Reddick. Welcome back to the program. Of course, for the Wall That Heals to get to the various locations where it is displayed, it requires some serious transportation. And that is where truckers come in. We've spoken to a number of truckers over the years who have hauled that special freight, including several who serve on the OOIDA Board of Directors. The latest member of that board who will haul the mobile memorial is Terry Button of Rushville, New York. I spoke with him recently about his upcoming mission. Well, first, tell us something about your background in trucking. How did you get into the business, and what do you do now as a trucker?
Got into trucking, driving the trucks on the farms in high school and college. Drove through college on the weekends and vacations. Saved money. Bought my first farm when I got out of college in 1980. Bought my first truck in 1981. Have been in business all my life for myself, both farming and trucking. Started out with cab overs, 45-foot, 96-inch reefers, hauled produce, cabbage, onions, potatoes from my area down to the markets, Boston, Philly, Jersey, Hunts Point, then to the markets in the major cities in Atlanta, Charlotte, all over Florida, and then would load produce back. At the same time, Mark, I used to think about marketing direct, and I started in the farming aspect of my business, and we raised hay, and then I shipped hay. Started out in Florida. The same customer I had 40 some years, and then hauling produce back to Rochester, Buffalo, and Syracuse, and just expanded on it over the years.
Now, you've also hauled, and this is the reason we're talking, of course, the Wall That Heals, kind of a model of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. How did you end up hauling that?
I haven't hauled it yet, but it's going to be hauled.
Okay.
Yates County is a county legislator. I'm on my fourth term. Was chosen in the whole state of New York to host the wall this year. It's going to be in the first week of August into the second week. And in my government operations and human services committee meetings, the director of Veterans Affairs approached me and asked me if I'd be on the committee and be interested in possibly make myself available to haul it. It was going to be before Yates County and Denver's Massachusetts, and then bring it back to Yates County.
Okay. Do you know why Yates County was chosen to display the wall?
I think because of our Veterans Affairs director. He's a very good man. His name's Doug Gibbs, and very passionate about the military. But I think we've given proclamations through our county for some of the World War II veterans and recognized the Vietnam War veterans. And the things we do are pretty from the heart, the people of Yates County. We care deeply about our military. We just a month or two ago gave a proclamation to an Army Air Force veteran, 100 years old. It was pretty impressive.
Now, I'm kind of curious. This is something that you've decided to haul there. Is this something just because you're involved in the governments of Yates County? Did you need to volunteer for it? Did they contact you? How did that all come about?
Well, the committee contacted me. Then I ran into a lady from our Chamber of Commerce that also said, "Thanks for helping us do this, Terry." I said, "Well, it's going to be supposedly August 6th that I can get up there and pick it up and bring it back." But again, there's a lot more paperwork that's involved in decisions that come out of Washington, D.C. We'll see how it goes. But they sent me, and I sent it on to SJ, who wrote an article about this. The requirements of it has to have a minimum between the back of your truck and the front of the trailer. And, I sent back to D.C. that I can, with a fifth wheel slid back, I can be 99 to 104 inches of clearance. They need, I think, a minimum of 94 or 96. So, I was just jumping through the hoops, Mark.
Well, I'm kind of curious if they talked with you at all about any special considerations you have to follow in hauling it, in terms of how it's packed, how it's hauled, so on and so forth. You mentioned that one particular requirement, but were there others directly related to the load?
Yes, they would ask you, and sometimes the people I think in D.C. that oversee it are kind of out of touch with the people in the counties and the people that they have out working with the counties, because the man sent me something saying, well, we'd like you to pick it up on Sunday and take 3 or 4 days to get it there. Well, I'll be up there in 6 hours and be back into Yates County. It's from Massachusetts, right out the thruway and the Massachusetts Turnpike, and then north out of Worcester. But one of the requirements it said is, and we support them, and I do, and most of the independent owner-operator, Blue Beacon truck washes. They ask you to take the trailer by and have it washed in a Blue Beacon truck wash. That's one of the other requirements. And to stay and make yourself available of whatever needs to be done as they're setting up the wall.
Did they talk to you about what is involved in setting up the wall? Because I would imagine that's quite a complicated process.
When our Director of Veterans Affairs, Doug Gibbs, had some of the committee, they were veterans from the Korean War and Vietnam War at our last Human Services meeting, they were saying that the wall will need around 200 people to help chaperone it and help with questions and people.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, it is a lot. But we're a good county. We step up to the plate. We may be the smallest one in the state, but we've got a lot of very good people here. We're blessed between our agriculture and our rural area.
Well, you mentioned, that you have to go ahead and have the trailer washed, that there's a certain amount of special care that is involved in hauling it. Do you know what the trailer looks like? Can you describe that for us?
Some of the other members of the board of directors, I'm going to send you the picture. Doug Smith, the board of directors, is hauling it here very soon, and he sent a picture of it. I'll send you the information also, Mark, that the people in Washington, D.C. sent me with the blueprints and the diagrams and everything. I'll send you that. Lou Esposito, another board member, has hauled it also, and the late board member, Steve Davenport's hauled it. So we've had board of directors of OOIDA be involved in it also. But I'll be glad to send you a picture of it. It shows quite a bit of mechanization towards the front as they've upgraded it, I believe, since when, like Lou Esposito hauled it earlier. That's why they're needing the clearance between the back of your truck and
Okay. Have you hauled other special loads like this before, or, unusual things? I know, for example, a lot of folks have hauled wreaths across America and taken part in that. And there are people that have hauled steel from 9/11, from the attacks to various memorials. Have you ever had a chance to haul something special like that before?
No, I haven't, but it'll be very humbling. But you just mentioned wreaths across America. My sister's a veteran from the Navy, and she helped put those wreaths through the cemeteries in my county back at Christmas time, and then went back through and helped pick them all up. But we also, what you just mentioned, Mark, some of the things that our membership does, we also at our board of directors, we funded the man that helps with the last mile when a trucker passes away, and he donates his time and service and has people in his, I'll say membership, but that's not the right word I want to use, in his contact list to help move somebody home. So our association is involved in a lot of things.
Okay. I'm curious, Terry, obviously this is something that you want to do, and having a veteran or veterans in the family, I'm sure there's a personal meaning to it as well. But overall, what do you think is the importance of having something like this move around the country to where people can see it?
Well, glad you mentioned that, Mark. A lot of the people in the younger generation, a lot younger than you and I, don't understand the sacrifices our veterans had made and didn't understand and grow up through the Vietnam War. And what we saw every night on the news, we only had 3 channels basically back then. There was no cable news. And I remember the body counts, the pictures, the statistics, and everything that came across. And people were unaware of the veterans, of what they did and when they came back through to come home. I've got a Marine veteran down the road from me. He doesn't talk about it, but he was in some very conflicting engagements. I'll leave it at that. But I think, people are oblivious in the country of the sacrifices, Guadalcanal, Normandy, the Bataan Death March, Chosin Reservoir, all the different. These are just some of the battles that stick out in my mind, that we don't teach the sacrifices anymore to the younger generation. And what we see going on now on television, they're oblivious to the sacrifices that people have made and families that have given up their family members to be able to give them the opportunity to do what they do, Mark.
Okay. Well, Terry, that's all I have. Is there anything else you want to add, or you think it's important for people to know about this?
No, I think seeing how it's the only place it's coming to in New York State this year, our area, I think, will be very blessed to be able to have the opportunity to have this show up in Yates County. But I think if people pay attention and care about what went on and try to honor the sacrifices the Vietnam War veterans made and have the ability to show up, I think there could be quite a few people in my county for those few days over the week.
Okay. Well, Terry, thank you very much for your time. I sure appreciate it.
No, I appreciate, Mark, what you do, and I'm glad you reach out to our board of directors and see the many different aspects of our men and women on that board and what they do every day.
That was Terry Button of Rushville, New York, a member of the OOIDA Board of Directors, who will soon haul the Wall That Heals, a replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. We'll have a link to the list of scheduled appearances for the Wall That Heals, as well as a link to a story about Terry Button's mission of hauling the wall on our website, landlinenow.com. Just click on the photo or headline at the top of the page. That's where you'll find all the website links, email addresses, and phone numbers that we mention here on the show. Again, that's at our website, landlinenow.com. Meanwhile, to take part in Mission Military Appreciation, just go to ooida.com and click on Become a Member. You can join or renew your membership for a discounted rate, and 10% of that will go into the Truckers for Troops Fund, with OOIDA matching that money. Again, just go to ooida.com. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. Please stay with us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Landline Now. Welcome back. Tomorrow, Tuesday, May 14th, is the start of this year's Roadcheck across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. This year, the CVSA's enforcement blitz will run through Thursday, May 16th. Inspectors on the state and federal level are going out across the country conducting Level 1 inspections on commercial motor vehicles. So truckers have very little time now until inspectors are actually at roadside pulling over tractor trailers. So what do you need to know? Here is some advice from Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Always good to be here, Mark.
Thanks for having us, Mark, again.
Yeah, and we did talk about this recently, but of course, Roadcheck's a big, hairy deal, so worth kind of reviewing it. And one of the things we didn't get too much into last time is that every year CVSA sets a particular enforcement item as their focus for inspections. And this year they actually have 2 items on the agenda. The first is drug and alcohol violations. So let's talk about that just a bit here. Do we know what specific types of drug and alcohol violations they're going to be looking for?
We do. During the 14th through the 16th, they're going to be looking, inspectors are going to be conducting queries in the clearinghouse on drivers. They're going to be examining the cab and the trailer for alcohol or controlled substances. And they're also going to observe signs of, impairment as far as that goes, and signs of controlled substances or either alcohol as well.
Okay. I know a big part of this is going to be checking to see whether those truckers are in the drug and alcohol clearinghouse. And because there's so many folks out there that just aren't familiar with all the rules, I'm wondering if you guys can just briefly explain what the drug and alcohol clearinghouse is and why it exists.
Yeah, the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, or the DACH as it's known, is a place where the MRO, you take a drug test. If it comes back with any issues, diluted or positive, the MRO will report this to the clearinghouse, and then you will be required to go through the SAP program. Now, the reason they have this is because drivers could apply for a job, take a drug test, fail that drug test, and that information was not known to anybody. If that driver didn't pass that information on, which, of course, it probably wouldn't, pass it on, it was not known. But now, any drug test you take, if it's a DOT drug test, DOT-regulated drug test, it will be reported to the clearinghouse if there's any anomalies, and then you will suffer the consequences. You have to go through the SAP program and so on and so forth. Now, every carrier must annually run a query on their drivers when they hire them to make sure that they're clear to be hired, and on an annual basis. And that checks for if a driver has taken one and the carrier didn't know about it and failed it, and kind of deal with it that way. It is imperative, because if you as a carrier, maybe you're a one truck operation, then you are everything. You've got to run that check on yourself. And if you haven't done that, they will be able to see roadside that you haven't done that. Also, if you are a disqualified driver, they will be able to see that roadside too, and they will take you out of the seat.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get away with something here.
Yeah, there's no loophole there. They'll get you. So make sure that you have ran your queries annually, and that all your drivers are supposed to be driving.
You used a term in there that I think is important to kind of spell out here. You said the SAP program, SAP, Substance Abuse Professional. What basically happens with a SAP?
With marijuana legal in so many states now, it's still illegal on a federal level. I want to say that. So, but I do talk to drivers that get caught up in that with the CBD stuff. If you test positive, you will have to go through the SAP program to be able to be requalified to drive a truck. And that means that you have to get in touch with a substance abuse professional. They have to do an evaluation. And per that evaluation, they will decide how much additional testing and information that you need. And then with your carrier, if you're still with the same carrier, or if you lose your job, as so many would, you'll have to get with another carrier and go through the return to duty process, which will be some randoms that will be imposed. Of course, you won't know when they are, and they will do, as many as that substance abuse professional thinks is necessary to guarantee that you are drug free. It hangs with you in the clearinghouse for quite a while. I mean, it can hinder your career, most definitely. So stay away from that CBD, guys, gals. I don't care what it says on those packages. It's not tested by the federal government or by the Food and Drug Administration, and it could have THC in there that will screw up your career.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that people take, and CBD is certainly one. I've heard doctors talk about herbal supplements. We don't really know what's in there,
and we don't. Yeah, if it's not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, as a driver, just protect your career. Stay away from it. I don't care if the package says you'll test clean. I don't care what it says. I talk to people all the time that they said, "Well, it said it would be clean." And they're dirty, and now they're marked.
Okay. Well, I mentioned at the beginning that they're going to have two focuses this year for Roadcheck. And the second focus is what they're calling tractor protection systems. That's a particular term I don't think I've actually heard in all my years of covering trucking. What systems are we talking about?
Yeah, well, in the tractor protection and the anti-bleed back system, this is part of the tractor trailer brake system that ensures that your brakes are correct, working correctly, and that should you get a leak in the system, it will ensure that the brakes will automatically set so that you're not going down the road and press on the brake and you got nothing and can't stop. That's not a good thing. The way they're going to do this is, during the inspection, the tractor protection system components, the inspector, he's going to ensure, he's going to chalk your wheels and have you release the brakes by pressing your dash valves. The drivers will, then pull the glad hands off and allow the air to escape. And they're going to ensure that the air stops leaking, meaning the valves will pop out at about 20 psi remaining. Then they're going to be, as always, listen and feel for any leaks at the glad hands, the couplers on the trailer. Then they'll request, that you do a full service brake application and listen and feel for leaks. And one thing I'd like to point out, Mark, and we've talked about this on other shows, is make sure you're ready. Make sure your brakes are adjusted up correctly. They do those good 6 full brake applications. Get those slack adjusters adjusted up. People don't realize, those automatic slack adjusters, especially for an owner-operator that rides around kind of really going easy on his brakes and, because, they want to save that stuff, you've got to do some full brake applications to get those slack adjusters to adjust properly.
Okay, and definitely something you want to do. And folks, if you do have questions about this as Roadcheck is underway, don't hesitate to call compliance here at OOIDA. The number is 816-229-5791. Now, I want to go back to kind of the broader Roadcheck process. These inspectors are going to be conducting level 1 inspections for the most part. And we did go over this on the previous conversation we had here on the air, but I want to get into some of the other things maybe we didn't cover. And one of those that they look for is cargo securement. When I hear about cargo securement, or over the years, it's normally flatbed that we're talking about. However, I'm curious, is this something they're only going to be looking at on flatbeds, or are people driving dry vans and reefers also going to have potential cargo securement issues?
Yeah, well, cargo securement is always an issue. I mean, yeah, granted, flatbeds, drop decks, they're the easy ones to see, because they can just eyeball those and see if you don't have enough straps or something. So, but, when you're in a dry van, Conestoga, reefer, whatever, that cargo can shift. I've hauled a lot of big rolls of paper, and those big rolls of paper, if they're not on, skid mats, they slide around in your trailer, and they can knock you right off the road. When you make your brake applications, a lot of times depending on how your cargo is loaded, it can slide forward, and that can be an issue. So cargo securement is all for all parts of the industry. I mean, your stuff has to be secure in your trailer. When you open your door, I've personally done it, open up doors on containers. You open the doors and the stuff falls out on your head. You just have to be careful. Sealed containers are particularly difficult to work with because they're sealed until you get to the receiver. But, anything you load, make sure it's secure. Have load locks, cargo netting, whatever is required. Make sure you've got it and it's available and it's in use. Because cargo securement, that's not just for your safety, but if you have some cargo come off your wagon, that's for the safety of everybody around you. And if it's inside your wagon and it's moving around, well, that's its own safety issues. So cargo securement is always an issue.
What about for flatbeds? I know that there's some specific issues there with flatbeds and cargo securement. What's a couple of things people need to watch for before they potentially get inspected?
Well, make sure everything is tight. I can't tell you how many times, and I know Aaron's had this call too, where somebody calls up and said, well, I had all my straps on there. They said I needed a couple more clicks. So I clicked it, a couple more clicks on each strap and I was good to go, but they put me out of service. Well, cargo securement is an easy out of service violation. You're out of service and you're right back in, but the fact that you were out, it will show up on your CSA, and that's an issue. Those out of services really, really pile up against you.
Okay. Another thing that I noticed is on the level 1 inspection here is coupling devices. And I assume here we're talking about the kingpin and the fifth wheel.
Yeah, for the most part, the kingpin, the fifth wheel, your glad hands, were what takes your two units and couples them together. As you know, when you pull up, say you're in a drop and hook situation, and you hook a trailer, you always want to pull that trolley brake, make sure that trailer's firmly attached, that your glad hands are on properly, that the little grommets are in there correctly, it's not leaking air. And as part of the tractor securement or the tractor protection, they're going to be checking that, but they always are listening and looking for air leaks. On this road check, yeah, they've got some issues that they say they're going to pay particular attention to. And I'll go with that, but they always pay attention to this stuff. When you get pulled over for a DOT inspection, roadside inspection, all this stuff is always on the table.
Absolutely. We've got about a minute and a half left, guys. Is there any other general advice that people kind of need to have in mind as we head into this inspection blitz?
Yeah, I would say the main thing I would do is prepare, right? And that's kind of why we're on here today. There's other things that people need to be aware of as well that some of these tractor protection systems and looking in the clearinghouse and running queries will lead to as well. They're also going to be checking brakes. They're also going to be checking lights. They're also going to be looking at your logs, permits, insurance, things of that nature. These are things that, you're supposed to have on hand, in your permit book and things of that nature. But just because they're observing these two specific things that they've pointed out here doesn't mean that that's what it's only going to be. They're going to be looking at other applicable things of that nature.
And one quick add, make sure your fire extinguisher is secured. I can't tell you how many times that's just a little thing, just because you don't have it secured. It's in there, you've got it, it's full, but it's not secured. That's the easy one, and make sure you got them seatbelts on.
Okay. Well, guys, we're out of time, but I want to thank you very much for all the information, and hopefully we help some folks.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for always.
I've been talking with Aaron Lynch and Tom Crowley of OOIDA's Compliance Department. We'll be back in just a moment. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline now, welcome back. We'll close things out today by taking a run through a few states making changes or considering changes that could affect your day-to-day. Today, that takes us to a few states where speed ticket cameras are on the docket and to Wisconsin where driver training programs are coming. And joining us with all the details, Keith Goebel, the state legislative guru of Landline Magazine. Keith, good to see you.
Scott, good to see you.
We've got a number of states here, legislatures looking at speed enforcement cameras or changes to the current rules. We're not going to get to all these. You'll have to go to landline.media to get a run through all of them, but we've got a few highlights here, and this is clearly a hot topic right now, Keith. It seems like a lot of states are looking at this issue.
Yeah, and I would say it's one of those annual topics where it's just a matter of how many states are going to be looking at it and what kind of changes are they trying to make. Obviously, they've been very common around the country. And, Iowa, interesting. Iowa, they've got at least a couple of dozen cities and towns that have red light and or speed cameras. But state law does not prohibit nor does it allow the use of these devices. But, hey, these locales, they can put them up if they want. So what we've seen in recent years, and again this year, is legislation to attempt to put in place either an authorization, restriction, or to prohibit. Anyway, legislation now this year in Iowa that's gone to the governor's desk would require local governments that have them to obtain a permit so that they can, allowing them to use specifically the speed cameras, and saying that tickets could be issued if someone is caught exceeding the posted speed by more than 10 miles per hour. So putting that in place, and for those cities and towns that already have the cameras, would require them to submit to the state DOT justification for the program, and that it's okay to continue.
Gotcha. Yeah. And again, Iowa, one of many states here. We're going to kind of run through these here. Louisiana, I know they just recently made changes, right, to speed camera rules in the state, right? Now they're considering some other ones.
Yeah, Louisiana, they've been pretty busy here this year on the topic. There's multiple bills on the use of speed cameras there in the state. Maybe the one that'll stand out to listeners is a law that's been in place for about 2 years there, but the focus is on the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge, and that rule authorizes speed cameras along that 18-mile span, and something that they haven't implemented. They're in the process of actually putting the cameras up along that span. But legislation that has been introduced and is actually close to passing through the State House would just go ahead and repeal that authorization. Concern being one, the double fine amounts, two, having, again, automated enforcement, those that are advocating for the reversal of this 2-year-old law, saying that it would be better to have law enforcement handling the issue and not relying on, again, technology, course, one of the issues that was brought up a couple years ago was the safety factor of having law enforcement on the span. But interesting, nevertheless, I mean, it is a program that hasn't been essentially implemented yet, even though it's been authorized for the past 2 years. And yet the legislature has decided, for the most part, and it's not finalized yet, but getting it through the State House to reverse course on that particular issue again on that span.
Yeah, and the Champlain Basin Bridge is kind of a tricky thing there, that span of I-10, because, I don't think law enforcement can necessarily sit along that span there. So the cameras kind of make sense, but I see the pushback there as well. So far we've been talking about possible changes in a couple of states. Maryland is a state that is or will be taking action on this because the governor there did sign a law or a bill into law that is going to really kind of put some teeth into enforcement there.
Yeah, as it is now, speed cameras on state highways and work zones. They also have them in school zones, but an officer is required to be present to man that camera. What this new law does is, one, it doubles the fines in the work zone, so going from $40 as it is now to $80. Now that's now. It's of no. I mean, they're trying to address an issue that they feel like it's getting away from them. It's these devices have not been as much of a deterrent as they've wanted. So mentioning again that the fines are doubling, but once the calendar turns to 2025, the fine amount is going to go up to $250. So quite significant increase there, trying to address the issue. And in addition to that requirement I mentioned of having a police officer present at the camera whenever these violations are being essentially issued, they're removing that. No longer will there be a requirement for an officer to be present, so they'll be able to obviously have more violations and more expensive as well.
And real quick here too, Vermont, the governor there has a bill on his desk now that would essentially do some of the same stuff there, right? This is a work zone type of thing.
Yeah, this is one that's permitting speed cameras on limited access highways, and we're including in that, the interstates 89 and 91. Requirement being for a citation to be issued, you have to be traveling at least 10 miles per hour above the posted speed. First violations would be a warning, and there would be the requirement that workers actually be present in a work zone, which is the focus of the speed cameras on work zones, but the workers be present for those citations to be issued.
And again, a handful of other states looking at this issue right now. Go to landline.media for updates on all of those. Let's end things here, Keith, in Wisconsin, where Governor Tony Evers has signed a bill into law related to a CDL training grant program and the creation of one. What do we need to know here?
Yeah, well, interesting. Creating a tuition reimbursement program, for students. Obviously, they're working toward their CDL. Worth noting as far as what the limitations are. The grant, it has up to 50% of the training cost, or it can be $3,000, whichever's less, for each individual that's trained. There is the requirement that for these eligible CDL training providers, they're located in Wisconsin and they're performing training in the state, they can apply for a grant. The training providers, they are required to be training individuals who reside in Wisconsin, and that they will obtain their CDL in Wisconsin. So putting those rules in place, obviously, again, the focus on benefiting Wisconsin truckers that want to be in the industry. And, definitely something that not common around the country, but it is worth mentioning. It's not an endless program as it's been approved. It's permitting essentially for about 2 years. So in July of 2025, it would sunset. The legislature would have to revisit it again, I guess making the determination of whether it was viable or if they need to make some sort of adjustments. But as it is, or how it will be here for the next year, is trying to benefit some of those folks who want to get into the industry.
Yeah, and I know the sponsor talked about the value of trucking in Wisconsin and the value of having more trained drivers. I'm not sure how much discussion was had about a so-called driver shortage in all of this, but it is, good to see. Obviously, we want people to be trained who are out on the roads there. And
certainly, if somebody wants to be in the industry and they're going to go about it the right way, do what you can and handle some of the costs involved.
Absolutely. We'll keep an eye on that and see how it works out there in Wisconsin. Keith, a pleasure as always. We will see you again next week with more updates from more states.
Man, thanks for having me.
And check out Landline.media for updates on these stories and many more. Our thanks to you for spending some time with us today here on Landline Now. That's our show for today. But we're back tomorrow with another. We hope to see you then.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome, and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.